Welcome back to the channel Rare Coins All World, coin lovers and collectors. If you're as fascinated by rare and valuable coins as we are, you're in for a real treat today. We're going to be exploring one of the most intriguing and valuable coins from the United States, something that you might not even expect to be worth much at first glance. We're talking about the 1992 Kennedy half dollar. While this coin may seem like a regular half dollar to most people, there's so much more going on beneath the surface. Stick with us to find out why this coin has become such a hot commodity and just how much it could be worth if you're lucky enough to find one with the right characteristics. At first glance, the 1992 Kennedy half dollar doesn't appear to be anything out of the ordinary. It features the familiar profile of President John F. Kennedy, with his iconic face on the obverse side. The reverse side, like all half dollars from this series, features the presidential seal, a symbol of the United States government. It's a design that has remained largely unchanged for decades, making it instantly recognizable. So, if this coin is so widely produced and circulated, why is it worth so much? What makes the 1992 Kennedy half dollar stand out in the world of coin collecting? The key to the coin's value lies in its rarity and the potential for minting errors. You see, while the United States Mint struck millions of Kennedy half dollars in 1992, not all of them were created equally. Over the years, many of these coins were distributed in mass quantities and circulated among the public, which means that most of them are now worn down and only worth their face value, 50 cents. However, for collectors, the real treasure lies in the rare specimens that were struck with mistakes or were preserved in exceptional condition. Let's start by discussing some of the minting errors that make the 1992 Kennedy half dollar so valuable. One of the most highly sought-after errors for this coin is the double die error. This occurs when the die used to strike the coin makes more than one impression on the coin's surface. In this case, it means that the design appears doubled, giving the coin a unique look. The 1992 Kennedy half dollar has been known to feature these double die errors, most notably around the inscriptions like "Liberty" or "In God We Trust." This small mistake can make a huge difference in value, and a double die error can send the price of the coin skyrocketing, but that's not the only error that makes this coin so intriguing. Another rare and valuable feature to look for is an off-center strike. This error happens when the coin blank, the round piece of metal used to create the coin, doesn't line up properly with the die during the minting process. The result? A coin with part of the design missing, or at least shifted to one side. An off-center strike on a 1992 Kennedy half dollar is highly coveted because it's a rare and visually striking mistake that stands out in any collection. Coins like these are so much more valuable because they're not only rare, but they're also one of a kind. A third type of error to watch out for is the clipped planchet. This error occurs when the blank metal planchet is cut improperly, leaving part of the coin missing. A clipped planchet on the 1992 Kennedy half dollar creates an irregular shape, and the missing portion makes the coin much more unique. For collectors, this is a highly desirable trait because it adds a distinctive touch to the coin's design. If you happen to find a 1992 Kennedy half dollar with a clipped planchet, it could make your coin worth significantly more than a regular issue. Now, beyond the minting errors, the condition of the coin is incredibly important. Coins that have been heavily circulated and show signs of wear and tear will never command the same price as coins that have been carefully preserved. The 1992 Kennedy half dollar is one of those coins that collectors are particularly interested in if they're in pristine, uncirculated condition. If you have a 1992 Kennedy half dollar that has sharp details, a clean surface, and an overall well-preserved appearance, you could be holding onto a coin that is worth a lot more than its face value. Coins in uncirculated condition tend to fetch a premium, as collectors are always on the lookout for well-maintained specimens that can enhance their collection. But, of course, the most exciting part of today's video is revealing just how much this coin can be worth, especially if it has one of those rare minting errors or is in perfect condition. Are you ready for this? Hold on to your seats because the value of a 1992 Kennedy half dollar, if it's in near perfect condition or has one of those coveted minting errors, can reach an incredible $190,000. Yes, you heard that right, $190,000. It's astounding that a coin that was once part of regular circulation, and to most people still seems like just another $0.50, can fetch such an amazing price. So, how can you find a coin like this? It all comes down to checking your change, searching through old rolls of coins, and carefully inspecting any 1992 Kennedy $0.50 you come across for signs of these rare errors or pristine conditions. If you've got a collection of coins from this year, it's definitely worth taking a closer look, as you might just have a real treasure in your hands. Today, we're bringing you a real gem from the 1980s, a coin you may have seen in your pocket or change, but definitely didn't realize it could be worth a small fortune. We're talking about the 1981 Kennedy $0.50. Now, most of us have come across these $0.50 at some point, but what you might not know is that certain 1981 Kennedy $0.50 could be worth much more than their face value, and today we're going to tell you why. Stick with us until the end because this coin might just be hiding some incredible value. The Kennedy $0.50 series was first introduced in 1964, following the tragic assassination of President John F. Kennedy. His image, immortalized on the obverse of the coin, has been a symbol of American pride and history ever since. The reverse side of the coin features the presidential seal, a timeless design that has become iconic in the world of American currency. For decades, the Kennedy $0.50 has been used in circulation, but in 1981, something unique happened that could make certain coins from this year worth far more than you might expect. The 1981 Kennedy $0.50 was struck during a period when the U.S. Mint was transitioning to new production techniques. Most of the coins from this year were mass-produced and circulated widely, which means that most of these coins have seen heavy wear and tear over the years. But for collectors, the real treasures aren't the worn-out, run-of-the-mill coins. No, what makes the 1981 Kennedy $0.50 truly interesting and valuable is the rarity and potential minting errors that could make it one of the most valuable $0.50 you'll ever find. Let's talk about these minting errors, because this is where things get really exciting. One of the most sought-after features of the 1981 Kennedy $0.50 is the double die error. If you're not familiar with this term, a double die error occurs when the die used to stamp the coin strikes the coin multiple times, leaving a doubled image. This means you could find a 1981 Kennedy $0.50 with the design features, like the word Liberty or In God We Trust, appearing slightly doubled. This is a very rare error, and when found on the 1981 $0.50, it can significantly boost the value of the coin, turning it into a true collector's dream. In addition to the double die error, another very rare feature that can make the 1981 Kennedy $0.50 extremely valuable is an off-center strike. This error happens when the metal planchet, which is the blank piece of metal that is struck to create the coin, isn't properly aligned with the die. As a result, part of the design is cut off, and the coin becomes slightly misaligned. Off-center strikes are highly collectible because they're unique and visually striking. If you're lucky enough to find a 1981 Kennedy $0.50 with an off-center strike, you're looking at a coin that could fetch a pretty penny at auction. Another error to keep an eye out for is the clipped planchet. This happens when the metal used to make the coin is improperly cut before it's struck, leaving part of the coin missing. If you find a 1981 Kennedy $0.50 with a clipped planchet, you're holding onto a true rarity. These coins are often irregular in shape, which makes them particularly appealing to collectors who are looking for something truly unique. The more dramatic the clip, the higher the coin's value, but let's not forget about the condition of the coin, because that plays a major role in its value. As with any collectible, the better the condition, the more it will be worth. Most of the 1981 Kennedy $0.50 that were in circulation have experienced heavy wear and are now in less than ideal shape. However, if you come across one that is in mint or near mint condition, with sharp details, crisp edges, and no signs of damage, you're looking at a coin that could command a premium price. Coins that have been well preserved are always in high demand, and collectors will pay top dollar for specimens that have been carefully maintained. So, you might be asking, how much is a 1981 Kennedy $0.50 worth if it has these rare errors or is in excellent condition? Well, prepare to be amazed. The value of a 1981 Kennedy $0.50 can range from a few dollars for a standard circulated coin to an astonishing $195,000 if it features a rare minting error or is in pristine, uncirculated condition. Yes, you heard that right, $195,000. It's incredible to think that a $0.50 coin, which many people might toss around as loose change, could be worth so much. But that's the magic of coin collecting. Sometimes, the most seemingly ordinary coins can have extraordinary value when they have rare characteristics or minting errors. So, what's the takeaway here? If you have any 1981 Kennedy half dollars lying around, make sure to inspect them closely. Look for those double die errors, off-center strikes, or clipped planchets. If you happen to find a well-preserved coin in great condition, you could be sitting on a hidden treasure. And if you happen to find a rare one with an error? Well, let's just say you might want to take it straight to a coin expert, because it could be worth an absolute fortune. Today, we have an absolute treasure to talk about, one that could very well change the way you view your pocket change. We're talking about the 1972 Kennedy half dollar, a coin that, while common enough to find in circulation, hides a world of potential worth beneath its surface. If you're a coin collector or someone just interested in rare finds, this is the video for you. Stick around, because we're about to reveal why this coin could be worth way more than its face value, and just how much it can fetch if you happen to find the right one. At first glance, the 1972 Kennedy half dollar looks like any other half-dollar coin in circulation. It features the familiar image of President John F. Kennedy on the obverse, facing left with his trademark profile. The reverse shows the traditional presidential seal, with an eagle clutching an olive branch and arrows. However, don't let its everyday appearance fool you. This coin has some hidden surprises that can make it worth a small fortune, especially if you know what to look for. While the Kennedy half-dollar series has been in circulation for decades, the 1972 issue is particularly interesting. Produced in large quantities by the U.S. Mint, the 1972 Kennedy half dollar was intended for regular circulation, just like many other coins of the era. But over time, this coin has become increasingly desirable to collectors due to some unique characteristics and errors that were made during the minting process. It's these very characteristics that can make a 1972 Kennedy half dollar worth far more than its 50-cent face value. And trust us, you're going to want to know what they are. One of the most fascinating aspects of the 1972 Kennedy half dollar is the double die error. For those of you who might not be familiar with the term, a double die error happens when the die used to strike the coin makes multiple impressions, causing the coin's design to appear slightly doubled. In the case of the 1972 Kennedy half dollar, this error can be seen in the inscriptions like "Liberty" or "In God We Trust." A doubled design gives the coin a unique and distinct appearance, which makes it highly desirable for collectors. These double die coins are extremely rare, and finding one in decent condition is a true collector's dream. In fact, a 1972 Kennedy half dollar with a double die error could potentially fetch an incredible price on the market, but the double die error isn't the only minting mistake that makes the 1972 Kennedy half dollar so intriguing. Another mistake to watch out for is the off-center strike. This occurs when the metal planchet, the blank piece of metal that is struck to create the coin, isn't properly aligned with the die. The result is a coin with part of the design shifted, leaving a noticeable gap or misalignment on the coin. Off-center strikes are highly collectible because they are unique and often very striking in appearance. If you find a 1972 Kennedy half dollar with an off-center strike, you might just have a rare and valuable treasure on your hands. In addition to minting errors, another factor that plays a major role in the value of the 1972 Kennedy half dollar is the condition of the coin. Like any collectible, the better the condition, the more it's worth. Over the years, most 1972 Kennedy half dollars have been circulated heavily, meaning they show signs of wear and tear. However, if you happen to come across one in pristine, uncirculated condition, you could be sitting on a gold mine. Coins that have been well preserved, with sharp details, no wear, and an overall fresh look, are much more valuable than those that have been used as everyday change. So, what happens when you combine a rare minting error with a coin in near-perfect condition? You get a highly sought-after collectible that could fetch a pretty penny. And if that rare 1972 Kennedy half dollar is the perfect specimen with just the right error, the value skyrockets. The price for a coin like this can be staggering, up to a whopping $200,000. Yes, you heard that right, $200,000 for a single coin. It's amazing to think that a coin that was once used in everyday transactions could be worth such a massive amount. But that's the beauty of coin collecting. Sometimes, the most ordinary-looking coins can turn out to be extraordinary treasures, just waiting to be discovered. So, how do you know if you have one of these rare 1972 Kennedy half dollars? First, carefully inspect any you come across for signs of the double die error. Look for the doubled inscriptions and check the areas around Liberty and In God We Trust. Next, examine the coin for off-center strikes or other unusual features. Finally, if you have a 1972 Kennedy half dollar that's in excellent condition, it's definitely worth taking to a coin expert for an appraisal, as it could be worth much more than you realize. Remember, the world of coin collecting is full of surprises, and you never know what hidden treasures might be lurking in your change jar or coin collection. If you've got a 1972 Kennedy half dollar, it might just be worth taking a closer look. You could be holding onto a coin that could be worth far more than you ever imagined. Today, we're diving into a coin that's not only historical but also incredibly valuable, the 1776 to 1976 Kennedy half dollar. This special edition coin was released to commemorate the United States bicentennial, marking the 200th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. But here's the kicker: what most people don't realize is that certain 1776 to 1976 Kennedy half dollars are worth a small fortune, and today we're going to uncover why. Stick with us, because by the end of this video, you'll have a whole new appreciation for this iconic coin. Let's set the stage. The 1776 to 1976 Kennedy half dollar was minted to celebrate a monumental event in American history, the bicentennial of the United States. The coin features the classic image of President John F. Kennedy on the obverse, but on the reverse, things are different. Instead of the usual design, the reverse showcases a bold, striking image of the Liberty Bell superimposed on the moon, a powerful symbol of American independence and the country's potential for future exploration. This design was created as part of the bicentennial celebrations, and millions of these coins were struck, making them widely available in circulation. Now, while most of the 1776 to 1976 Kennedy half dollars you come across in your change are worth, well, 50 cents, there are certain versions of this coin that can be worth much more. And we're not talking just a few dollars here or there, we're talking about a coin that could fetch a staggering $290,000. So, what makes these coins so special, and how do you know if you have one of these rare, high-value examples? Let's start with the rarity. As we mentioned earlier, the 1776 to 1976 Kennedy half dollar was minted in large numbers, so most of these coins are pretty common. However, as is often the case in the world of coin collecting, condition is everything. Coins that have been circulated heavily, which is true for the majority of these half dollars, aren't worth much more than their face value. But if you happen to come across a 1776 to 1976 Kennedy half dollar that's in mint condition, with sharp details, no wear, and no signs of circulation, you could be holding on to something truly valuable. But wait, there's more. Not all 1776 to 1976 Kennedy half dollars are created equal. Some of them contain rare minting errors that can make them worth far more than a standard issue coin. These errors are the real treasure in the world of numismatics, and they can happen during the production process, turning an ordinary coin into a one-of-a-kind rarity. One of the most sought-after errors on the 1776 to 1976 Kennedy half dollar is the double die error. This occurs when the die used to strike the coin is misaligned, causing certain elements of the design, like the lettering or details of Kennedy's portrait, to appear slightly doubled. These coins are highly collectible because they are unique and are often seen as a historical anomaly. A double die error coin, especially one in pristine condition, could command a serious price in the marketplace. Another rare error to keep an eye out for is the off-center strike. This happens when the metal planchet, the blank piece of metal that struck to create the coin, isn't aligned properly in the machine, causing part of the coin's design to be cut off or shifted. An off-center strike gives the coin a unique look, and these irregular coins are highly prized by collectors because they are unlike anything else. If you find a 1776 to 1976 Kennedy half dollar with an off-center strike, you might just be sitting on a goldmine. Now, let's talk about the S Mint mark version of the coin. The San Francisco Mint produced a special edition of the 1776 to 1976 Kennedy half dollar that was struck in a 40% silver composition. These silver coins are much rarer and more valuable than their copper-nickel counterparts, which were struck in higher quantities. The silver version of the 1776 to 1976 Kennedy half dollar is especially sought after by collectors, and in excellent condition, these coins can command impressive prices. If you happen to have one of these silver coins, you could be holding onto a piece of American history that's worth far more than 50 cents, and let's not forget about the proof coins. In addition to the regular circulation coins, the U.S. Mint also struck proof coins to commemorate the bicentennial. These coins were produced with a special method that gives them a mirror-like finish, making them stand out from the typical coins you'd find in circulation. Proof coins are often sold in sets and are intended for collectors, not for general use. If you come across a proof 1776 to 1976 Kennedy half dollar, especially one in mint condition, you could be looking at a very valuable coin indeed. So, what's the final verdict on the value of this coin? Well, if you're lucky enough to have one of these rare 1776 to 1976 Kennedy half dollars with a significant minting error, a silver composition, or it's simply in outstanding condition, you could see it sell for an incredible $290,000. Yes, you read that right, $290,000 for a single coin. It's mind-blowing, isn't it? To think that a coin so many of us have seen in our pocket change could be worth that much is a reminder of just how much hidden treasure could be lurking in places we least expect. So, if you happen to come across a 1776 to 1976 Kennedy half dollar, take a close look at it. Inspect the details, check for any minting errors, and if you find something unusual or rare, don't hesitate to get it appraised by a professional coin expert. Who knows? You could be holding onto a coin that will make you a small fortune. Today, we have something incredibly special to talk about, the 1973 Kennedy half dollar. At first glance, you might think it's just another coin in circulation, but let me tell you, this particular coin holds far more value than its face value of 50 cents. Some of these coins are worth thousands, and in rare cases, up to $160,000. Intrigued? Stick around as we dive into the fascinating history, rarity, and the hidden value of the 1973 Kennedy half dollar. The Kennedy half dollar series has a rich history that began in 1964 as a tribute to President John F. Kennedy, who tragically passed away in 1963. The coin features the iconic portrait of Kennedy on the obverse and has become a staple in American numismatics ever since. But while many of us have come across a Kennedy half dollar in our daily lives, the 1973 version is one that collectors truly covet, and for good reason. So, what makes the 1973 Kennedy half dollar stand out in the world of coin collecting? For starters, we're talking about a coin that was struck during a time of change. The 1970s were an interesting decade for coin production in the United States. The U.S. Mint was transitioning away from using silver in regular coinage due to rising silver prices and a shortage in supply. By 1971, coins like the Kennedy half dollar had transitioned from being composed of 40% silver to a copper-nickel clad composition. The 1973 version, like other half dollars from this period, was made of this new composition, but that doesn't mean it lacks value. What sets the 1973 Kennedy half dollar apart are the rarities and errors that make certain coins from this year stand out. First off, let's talk about the minting process. The production of coins is an incredibly precise operation, but like any other mass production process, errors do happen. Sometimes, these errors are extremely subtle, but for collectors, they are like finding a hidden treasure. One of the most valuable errors to watch out for is a double die. A double die occurs when a coin is struck multiple times during the minting process, causing parts of the design to appear doubled. This can happen with the text, the portrait, or other small details, making the coin a unique specimen. Coins with this error are highly sought after by collectors because they are rare and distinguishable from standard issue coins. Finding a 1973 Kennedy half dollar with a double die error could significantly increase its value. If you've got a coin like this, you could be looking at a much more substantial return than you might have ever expected. Another minting error to be aware of is an off-center strike. This happens when the metal planchet, or blank coin, isn't aligned properly during the minting process, causing part of the design to be cut off. Off-center strikes are not only interesting to look at but also incredibly rare. These coins become an anomaly in the world of numismatics, and their uniqueness drives their value up. An off-center 1973 Kennedy half-dollar could be worth much more than a coin with a perfect, centered strike, but it's not just minting errors that make this coin special. The condition of the coin plays a huge role in determining its worth. Just like any collector's item, whether it's comic books, trading cards, or stamps, the condition is paramount. A 1973 Kennedy half-dollar in uncirculated condition, meaning it has not been circulated or handled too much, will almost always be worth more than a coin that has been used in daily transactions. Over the years, coins naturally accumulate wear and tear from being handled, so finding one in pristine condition can be a rare find, and that's exactly what makes collectors excited. If you have a 1973 Kennedy half-dollar that looks as if it just came out of the mint, it could fetch a very high price on the market. Now, let's get to the real kicker, the value. As we've established, there are many factors that can affect the value of a 1973 Kennedy half-dollar, from minting errors to the condition of the coin. But even if your coin doesn't have a rare error or show signs of being in perfect condition, it can still be worth far more than you might expect. Depending on the specific characteristics of the coin, you might find yourself holding onto a coin that could fetch an impressive $160,000. Yes, you heard that right, $160,000 for a single 1973 Kennedy half-dollar. That's an enormous value for a coin that many people wouldn't give a second glance. But remember, coins with minting errors, those in superb condition, or those with unique qualities are extremely valuable, and in the world of numismatics, they can command life-changing amounts of money. So, if you've got a 1973 Kennedy half-dollar lying around in your collection, it's time to take a closer look. Examine the design carefully, check for any minting errors, and if you find something unusual, make sure to get it professionally appraised. You could be holding onto a coin that is worth far more than its face value. Thank you for tuning in to this exciting exploration of the 1973 Kennedy half-dollar. If you enjoyed learning about this coin's hidden value, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any future coin discoveries. And remember, keep hunting and keep collecting, because you never know when you'll stumble upon a coin that's worth a small fortune. Until next time, happy collecting.